This is the EG Vienna 250. It's called the 250 because it has a 250 watt internally geared rear hub motor. I've reviewed the 250EX from 2014. This is 2016 model, and it's really been upgraded and refined in a few key areas. One being the drivetrain, Shimano Acera versus Tourney from before. So this is a few steps up from that, and instead of having 6 gears, now there are 7. And you get a little bit of a larger gear there. It's still only 14 to 28, so it's a smaller cassette than like mountain bikes and stuff, but you also have smaller wheels. These are 20-inch wheels. You can see the spokes are a little bit thicker, 13 gauge. They tend to be very, very sturdy, and of course they're smaller because this is a folding electric bike. It becomes more compact that way. Anyway, the smaller diameter also gives the motor a little bit more of kind of a leverage advantage, so it doesn't have to be quite as big, and by keeping us at 250 watts, they keep it lightweight, and they might extend your range a little bit. So to offset the smaller cassette and also the smaller wheel size, they've got a really large chainring up here, so it's extra large, and it's got a nice guide, just plastic, but that's going to keep the chain on track. It's easy to drop your chain on an electric bike, especially when you have a throttle mode, because you might just be going along coasting and the chain can just kind of flop off. So I really like that they've balanced this out, given you that extra gear and made it a little bit smoother and more steady pedaling. It's not like you have to struggle to keep up. So that's cool. In addition to the frame folding, of course, they've also got these folding pedals, VP, plastic, kind of basic. They're not quite as stiff as if they were metal, but you're gonna save some on cost and weight. And that's one of the themes here. So this is the new bike. It's upgraded. It's a 36 volt battery, 7.8 amp hours, whereas the old one had a 24 volt battery. So that extra voltage does give you a little bit more power with the motor. Samsung sells pretty nice pack, 1-year comprehensive warranty on this thing, but they've upgraded it, and at the same time they've taken $100 off. So this is $12.99 for this folding electric bike. Definitely one of the better values out there, but it is missing suspension. So they used to have a suspension fork on it. Now it's a high tensile steel fork. Again, coming back to the weight, 43.5 pounds is what this weighs in at, and the battery pack itself is only like 4 pounds. So you end up with something pretty lightweight, and that's nice that it's overall a good weight because they don't have quick release on either of the wheels. Sometimes that's a way that I kind of cheat and try to lighten the weight of a bike if I'm transporting it. But this one, all you can do is really take out the battery pack, and I'm not sure if I would. It's locked in there, and I love that the lock is actually on the inside. I'll show that later when I fold it versus on the bottom. Some of these have like keyholes on the side, and I just feel like they're exposed to more water and dust and stuff. You can see that this is a purpose-built electric bike frame with this little plastic channel just to keep the extra wires and stuff out of your way, and I think it's just a little bit stronger. The wires are definitely exposed, and unlike some of the other e-bikes I've seen where they put wrappers on it, this one they just have these little clasp things. I think they still look pretty nice, but there are a lot of wires going on, and that's because it has mechanical linear pull brakes that also have motor inhibitors on both of them. So if you're riding and you're using the throttle or you're in pedal assist mode, but you need to stop, and when you pull that brake lever, it's gonna just kill the power to everything. So that's a really good safety option, something I like to call out. But of course they also have the trigger shifters, and then they've got the trigger throttle right here. The shifter mechanism is very similar to the old ones, the SIS index, just a big thumb shifter, a little bit more basic. Sometimes I actually prefer triggers, but when you do that, then you don't have room for a trigger throttle. So this is a good option that way. It also works pretty well if you have gloves on. There's a nice little flick bell, just kind of basic, but it gets the job done. And the handlebars on this, they're flat versus being a riser, and there's a telescoping stem. Okay, so you really can dial this in, and even though this measurement right here is only 12.5 inches, that means that the seat post can go really, really low. There's actually a pretty good reach distance, and I'll have all those specs back at the website, along with a little bit information more about the drivetrain we were talking about before. So I was pretty impressed with this. The seat post diameter is like 33.4, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. That's also at the full review, but it's 550 millimeters long. That's huge. Most seat posts are only 300 or 350. So that means that the seat can really be elevated, and you can almost have like a full-size ride. Like imagine if instead of the down tube, top tube thing being down there, if it was higher, this would look like a full-size bicycle. And it rides pretty well, aside from having the smaller wheels, which tend to, you know, kind of bounce around a little bit more and slop into cracks and stuff. So the ride quality there is a little bit diminished, 20 by 1.75. Sometimes I'll see the fatter tires like 2.25. 1.75 is just a little bit more of a kind of a hybrid and city size. There's not as much cushion there. So that's one of the points that I keep hammering in on all the reviews. It's sort of like comfort. Thankfully, they have a decent saddle here that's pretty squishy, and they've got these semi-ergonomic rubberized grips. This one's cut down a little bit so that there's room for all the other shifting mechanisms. You can see that it gets a little bit crowded up here, but it all fits well enough, and you can adjust this a little bit with a quick release. I think that's a pretty good overview. Of course, they've got the plastic fenders with little mud flaps, and then the rear carry rack, 25 kilogram maximum weight. I think that's like 55 pounds. It's got the spring-loaded clasp. LED lights on this thing, and this one's from Spinningo Solo. Looks like it has a couple of AA batteries in there. I didn't actually open it up, but you can see that the front light is also independent, so they're not wired in. That just means it's easier to forget to turn it off after you've done, potentially run out on those batteries. I like it when they're wired in, but then that's more wires coming across the frame, and when you fold stuff like this, it's a little bit easier for those wires to get pulled or kind of bent. So I feel like they made a decent choice. Again, there's value here. There's definitely, this is one of the more affordable options. So we talked about the motor, 250 watt internally geared. That keeps it a little bit lighter weight, a little bit smaller, and it's really just hidden right behind that cassette. Here are those brakes, a little bit more of a close-up. Pro Max, linear pull, so they're gonna rub on those rims. If you live somewhere where you are getting this really wet and muddy and stuff, those brakes can kind of rub dirt and grime into your rims a little bit more, but they're the standard. They've been doing fine for a long time. They keep it cheaper. Okay, so the battery pack, we said 36 volt, 7.8 amp hours. I'm gonna show that in a little bit, but before we get there, I wanted to call out this really cool little rubber cover. This is how you turn the battery pack on. So it is kind of a two-step process. You have to physically turn it on, and then you get up to the display. But the other cool things down here are a charging port, so you can charge the battery on or off the frame. You don't have to take it out. Don't have to unfold the bike. That's really nice. And then there's a USB charging port, so you could potentially plug a phone or a GPS or something in and wire that up and maybe use some rubber bands, and yeah, you could run that right off your main battery pack, which is really cool. I like to see that. Okay, so we get up here to the cockpit. To activate this bike, there's that first step. Let me make sure I turned it on. Okay, it looks like it's on the on position. And then we just press on right here on this LED console. Pretty simple. 4 little dots for power, so how much battery capacity remains. It's giving you a rough estimate. And then mode, low, medium, or high. That's for pedal assist. At any time, you can also override pedal assist by pushing on that throttle. And it's mounted a little high for me. I kind of have to like bring my hand up to push down on it, and I think that's just because it's maybe colliding with the brake lever. It could probably be fine-tuned, but then the brake lever is going to stick up a little bit. So that's, like I said, it's a little bit crowded. The other thing here that's worth pointing out is the handler. I didn't know what that meant, but with a little bit of experimentation, you press mode and handler lights up, and now what that means is only the handlebar works, so only the trigger throttle. Pedal assist turns off. So that's kind of neat. You can enable or disable pedal assist, but at any time you still have the trigger throttle, and that's really cool for a small little bike like this. Maybe you're using it to commute, you need to dash across the street, or a little bit of help climbing that hill. Being 135 pounds, I'm not a super heavy guy, and I've mostly been pedaling this. It's done okay up the hills, but 250 watt motor, that's a little bit more minimal. You know, it's on the smaller side. 36 volt battery is gonna help give it a little bit, breathe some more life into it, but it's not super strong. It's more the standard in Europe. Here is the cadence sensor. It's just this little plastic disc. I have no idea what it looks like inside. I imagine there are just some little magnets, and it sort of senses the crank turning. You know, it's been pretty responsive though, and the motor's relatively quiet too. You hear a little bit of a whir, but it gets the job done. So go ahead and enable pedal assist again by turning off that handler, and now maybe I'll do a quick unfolding just to show you how this works. One of the first things I do is drop the seat post, so there's a quick release right here, whoa, and it slides down. But because this is such a long seat post, you can see that pretty quickly it actually goes beyond this little deck stand, and this is designed to help protect those teeth, but also to balance the bike when it's in the folded position. So I actually haven't been sliding it all the way down, been keeping it up a little bit higher to protect it, but then this sticks up. So the folding dimensions of this aren't quite as good as one that has a shorter seat post, but you get a more upright riding position. It's a trade-off, and you could always replace this seat post if you wanted to. Okay, then we can come up here to the front. It's a little plastic locker. Turn that out, pop this lever forward, so that's just a safety mechanism. You can see there's a bolt in there that you can tighten or loosen, and it kind of pushes that rod forward, and that's going to tighten the fold. Okay, so we fold this down. The pedals fold too. Just kind of pull on them like this and then push down. They're kind of nice that way. You don't have to pull the whole pedal, you just use your fingers. So I'm a fan of that. Okay, and now we're at that last step. There's that locking point, and pop this open. Same thing, you can kind of adjust this for tightness. So, you know, it works pretty well. It's nice that they have those extra safety mechanisms. Now I'm gonna try to unfold the whole thing. Okay, there we go. We got it unfolded. You can see inside now. So there are these two pins that connect with the battery. You can't power the bike on when it's in the folded position. So that's kind of a nice little safety feature. And then there's the keyhole that I was talking about. So it's all kind of protected inside the tubing. I do want to point out that this, like so many electric folding bikes I've seen lately, doesn't have magnets, doesn't have like a rubber band to keep it folded. So you might want to have your own bungee cord or a strap or something, because otherwise this could be in your car rattling around, kind of scratch the paint, and just, I don't know, not quite as secure, solid feeling. So here's the key, put it in there, twist it, and it starts to slide out. Note that if you push the battery all the way in, that's not where it locks. You actually have to let it like slide forward a little bit and line it up with the rest of this tubing. That confused me at first. Here's the battery. Like I was saying before, it's about 4 pounds. See the charging port on that side. Yep, 36 by 7.8 amp hours, Samsung. It's kind of nice. And there's the little bolt that keeps it. So I'll put this back in there. And maybe I'll unfold it. I'll just do a quick walk around. You know, pretty compact. This fender's a little bit more protected, but you know. And now we're ready to ride. Okay, so I'm gonna come back up here, press the power button. You know, having that second switch, it concerns me a little bit. I mean, I'm not sure what happens if you leave that on all the time. I would think I would try to turn it off just to reduce any phantom power draw, but might be okay. Oh, and I forgot to raise the seat. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna start off and just put it all the way up in the highest level of assist and show you how responsive it is. So listen for that motor and watch for my pedal motion. It's not instantaneous, but it's similar to what I've experienced on other folding e-bikes. And with the smaller, I guess I'm in a lower gear, so the magnets are passing quicker in the cadence sensor and activating pretty efficiently. Now we can do the trigger throttle. Not bad, you know, pretty quiet, not super duper powerful, but it's nice to be able to use that trigger throttle and have that upright seating position. Now we can't tell how fast we're going because the display is a little bit more basic, but that's back those cost savings we talked about earlier. Do some braking, working pretty well. Here's what the charger looks like, by the way. It's only 1.2 pounds, very portable. I like that this side of the plug unplugs so you can kind of limit how much space it takes up. It's a 2 amp charger, so it should work pretty efficiently. And the seat post there, I actually think it's 33.9 millimeters in diameter. So if you wanted to replace that, good luck. You might need a shim just to make it a little bit fatter, but that makes it extra sturdy, being a bit wider like that. Well, I think that's about it. That's the 2016 version of the EG Vienna. For the full write-up on this and some of the other EG bikes or folders, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. And maybe you've got the old version of this or you have some experience with EG. Feel free to chime in, share your thoughts or questions, and ride safe.